Ladies, gentlemen, and friends beyond the binary, welcome to the Discourse for today, June 16th, 2023. I'm your host, Tristan. Hello. That's me. I'm your host, Tristan. My name is Tristan. I'm the host of the YouTube channel Step Back History, or Step Back at stepbackhistory.com, or I am the co-host of the podcast It's Probably Not Aliens, which can be found at probsnotaliens.com. Nailed it. I stream on Fridays at noon, which is what I'm doing right now. Although I will have one note on that, which is that next week there will not be a stream. I'm going to be out of town. Whoa. Going to be in beautiful, sunny Los Angeles, California, for VidCon. So we'll take next week. Next week I will not be here. If you wish to support my work, you can go to nebula.tv/stepback. And if you sign up for Nebula using that link, you are helping my channel out with a percentage of your sign up. The amount of money you like. As long as you are a member of Nebula, if you signed up using that link, you are supporting my work the entire time that you are a member, with a percentage of what you pay. If you want something a little bit more direct, you can go to patreon.com/stepbackhistory, where you can get onto things like, you can also get videos early and ad-free, but you also get things like credits, names in the credits, or voting power. I usually choose between 3 different topics for videos, and patrons over a certain tier get to vote on which one they want to move forward with. And they're the reason that I did the China video, and they're the reason that my next video is going to be about artificial intelligence and historical materialism. It's going to be very fun. If you want some super chats or anything like that, if you have extra money lying around, of course, money's tight and it's never expected, but if you have a super chat, I'm grateful to take it. All right. My latest video is on China, called Terrorizing, What the West Needs to Know. And it's a history of modern China and some of the more thorny issues that have been brought up in sort of the narrative of China in the West. And so I want to talk about Chinese history without delving into a Cold War narrative. And I will say, I have gotten reasonable amounts of praise for being even-handed in the video. So even real China heads, and the only people who have really complained have been like hardcore Cold Warriors for the US. But even then, that has been very few people. My next video, as I mentioned, is going to be about artificial intelligence and Marxist theory, and about how it might be counterproductive for us to go around with this like AI bad, no exceptions, just everything to do with this technology is bad and needs to be destroyed at all costs. And maybe talk about how that is not a useful way of approaching industrialization, in the same way that a lot of socialists during the Industrial Revolution opposed the concept of industrialization because of the threat it had to their work. And Karl Marx pointed out that like that stuff's like not, this stuff's sort of inevitable, and you can't really like you have to kind of like you have to have a theory behind things, is basically what I'm saying. Should be really fun. It's probably a video that I'm going to get fucking pilloried for by my fellow leftists on social media, so I'm sure you guys will really love that. I haven't done a video that I was like legitimately thinking was going to get me in trouble with my colleagues, mostly because this is the first time I've had like a major disagreement with many of my, what I would call more of like a reaction-minded socialist response to something. And this one, I think, is one that's worth having a conversation about. So hopefully, it'll be received with grace and kindness, and not just like, Tristan say AI good, but AI bad. Tristan bad because Tristan say AI good. And that'll be the end of it. we'll see what happens. I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, and if you wish to submit questions for this stream, you can go to stepbackhistory.com/stream question, or I will put a link in the chat right now for you. Yeah, and you can submit a question there. I have only a handful, so, more is better. I hang on to questions for a month, so if I don't get to them during one stream, I might answer them in like the next week or the week after that, etc., etc., etc. Okay. If there's anybody who it's their first time tuning in to the stream, please make yourself known. We have a really great chat community here on the YouTube streams, and I would love for you guys to say hello and join in on the conversation. So, oh, you're starting to see some nuanced take on AI coming from people you trust on the left. That's good. I'm glad. I have been a little bit checked out on Discourse lately, and the last I was checking, everyone was just completely dismissing artificial intelligence for various different reasons, and I am not of that position. Is there things to get mad at about the way that AI is being implemented? Sure as fuck there is. Just in the same way that industrialization came with environmental destruction and the erosion of people's standard of living and, workers' rights and such like that. But I will say that the left didn't get its victories during the Industrial Revolution by destroying all the factories and forcing us to abandon industrialization. They won by unionizing and forcing the conditions to improve in workplaces. And I think that's going to... And there's a whole lot of very useful conversations to have. Some of them are interesting in philosophical ways that I think I've talked about in the stream before. Things like we've never really had the conversation about AI training data and whether or not training a massive data set is in any way, like, is that plagiarism? Is that copying? I would argue that it's not any of those, and that it's a new thing that's in a fuzzy area that's more complicated to really talk about. Especially because if you become too hard in your definitions, in some ways you could then say that anybody, like any human, taking any inspiration from any other artist is plagiarism, which is not like that, like, depending upon how you go philosophically. I do think, though, I think it's very important to point out that that artists should be compensated for AI training data, and that their art, and that there's still a ways away from like threatening the, not so much the artistic, like not so much like the mechanical skills of making art, but more in the design aesthetic and the ability to conceive and build upon and respond to the feedback on art. And that is going to be still quite a ways away when it comes to, like, AI art. But I still think that there's more. The way that people are covering the art angle, I feel like has lacked nuance, because there's just this very angry, and rightfully so, group of people of artists who are just coming off being fucking scanned by NFT grifters and see, AI image generation as the exact same thing when it's really not. But that's different. And the other part is AI text development, large language models, things like ChatGPT. And a lot of it comes down to a lot of people. Where do I want to get into this? There's a lot of people who either say that ChatGPT type tools are useless, mostly because they don't use it for the things that it's supposed to be used for, or things that it's actually good at, and try to say that it is bad at doing the things that it's distinctly not good at. And then other people who get it to make things that it's not good at, and it pulls out crap and then say, look, this is the best thing ever. It's very sad, and it's going to make a lot of extremely shitty low-grade content coming out in the near-term future. I use ChatGPT on an almost daily basis, and it has extremely powerful uses for specific purposes. And I use it to that extent. And anybody who I know who actually knows how to use these tools knows that they are very powerful, but they're not like oracles, you know. See the legal video on the lawyer that used ChatGPT? That's a funny video. That I have not seen, but it does sound. I have seen it. I've seen the thumbnail flying around on Nebula and such, but I haven't gotten around to it yet. Okay. But on that note, is there anybody who it's their first time here? Is there anybody here who it's their first time watching the stream? If not, then that's fine. Just have the old regulars showing up, which is good. First time in the live stream. Nice. Well, Zia Smith, welcome to the stream. Welcome to the Orc Gang. Okay. So I guess I don't have the song for it yet. Soon though. I guess it's time for us to ding ding ding. Let's talk about some W's. It's win time here at the Step Back stream. Everybody, this is I'd say it's new, but now it's a couple months old. This is a segment I do before I get into the questions before every stream where we celebrate each other's victories. We talk about our wins, W's, if you will, to use the Zoomer parlance, and talk about good things that have happened to us or victories that we have made in the last week. They can be as big as getting engaged or as small as I had a really good breakfast this morning, or I was able to get up and brush my teeth and it did not, and I managed to do it without hesitation, or whatever. Whatever you interpret as a victory for you, let's celebrate it. Let's celebrate each other's wins. What's a really good one for me? I mean, the big one for me, I guess, is that today is my last day of work for a week, and the first vacation that I'm going to take, that I've taken in like 17 months. It's the first time I'm going to be away from my son since he was born. And the thing about being a parent is, even if you're not working, you're still working, right? So this will be my first time, and I'm looking forward to just sleeping in a quiet hotel room in beautiful California and going for nice long walks without having to worry about who's taking care of the little munchkin, and you know, just doing everything whenever I feel like doing it, and going out late at night and all that kind of fun stuff. I'm looking forward to just a week where I can sort of be. It's gonna be pretty great. It looks like I got a pretty fun few days there. All right, let's see what we got. Got a second job swamping my favorite MPLS drive bar to save up for a new gaming computer and half-price drinks. Nice. Everyone likes a half-price drink. Let's see. Cat's blood test came back normal, and she stopped pooping blood. Well, I think we can always celebrate the cessation of pooping blood. More of a win for the cat, but it means that you don't have to clean that shit up. And as somebody who had a cat that spent her last months with some sort of intestinal cancer, I know that that can be very terrible, and I'm glad that that you no longer have to deal with that kind of stuff with your cat. You managed to build major portions of your computer after the overheating issues last week. It was a pain, but it's done. It should keep your PC going for another few years, hopefully. Nice! Well done. Well done. Win for me. I've been working on trying to build a co-op in my part of rural Ontario. Nice. And got connected with someone who's going to help me write a grant to do a study, etc. Progress. Nice. Yeah, co-ops are awesome. I'm glad that you're getting something like that together. I always said that if Step Back ever got big enough that I could permanently take on a second person, that I would turn Step Back into a co-op. I don't know how that would happen. Step Back would need to get a lot bigger and make a lot more money, but if that was ever a thing that I was going to do, that's probably a thing I would do. That's not what I'm doing now, though. Managed to shave my face and send dysphoria to the Shadow Realm. Sweet. Excellent. Yeah, even when you are, like, what's it called? Anybody who has to shave knows that, shave your face, knows that it can be a major pain in the ass to get, like, the proper shave. I guess maybe it's different for other people, especially if, I don't know if you're, like, on HRT or anything like that, Zavi, but I personally have facial hair that is a massive pain in the ass to shave because, like, I don't know if you can, I don't know if this will come by in the camera, but I basically can't get, like, my hair. I don't know if this comes across on camera, but my hair is very thick. It's very thick and very curly, and it means that, like, shaving with, like, because, like, anybody who doesn't have a beard, you'll know, or you'll learn here that beard hair is, like, substantially thicker than head hair. And so I have, like, fucking steel wool coming out of my neck here. And it basically means that I can never get, like, that perfectly smooth shave. And I have searched for a way to do it my whole life, including, like, getting to the point of trying to buy, like, straight razors and stuff like that, or safety razors. But I never really got anything that really, really worked for me. So I just sort of live with the permanent 5 o'clock shadow. I will say, maybe that's another W for Tristan, is I got my VidCon haircut. I went to a barber, and she did this. This is a fresh-ass cut. I like it a lot. And she did my beard, and I feel like in the last couple months, my beard has been on fucking point. It looks like I actually have a jaw. So fucking Giga Chad jaw here. Okay. So, I'm glad that you've had shaving success because I have obviously fought with it all my life. And you obviously have higher stakes for doing so. And I'm glad that you've had success. All right. My W this week is that I filled another barrel of weeds. Getting back to yard work is always awful, but worth it. Yeah. I've actually been interested in something, Daniel, that I might try next year for my garden. And I don't know if it'll work or not, but I've been told it's good. But what you do is that instead of, like, you know, the typical way you run a garden, it's the cardboard trick. Yeah. So instead of pulling out weeds, what you do is you just put a layer of cardboard down over top of the weeds and then put a layer of dirt on top of that. And the sort of plants die and become part of the fertilizer as it, like, melts through the cardboard and sort of becomes the thing. And you just redo that every year. I've been told it's really good. I haven't done it myself, and I can't speak to how useful it is. But I think next year, I think my son's going to be old enough that I can actually, you know, have the energy to do gardening. Because I want to do, like, raised bed. Because, like, thing is that my yard is full of fucking squirrels. So I have to do, like, raised beds, and I have to do, like, chicken wire around everything to keep the squirrels from just eating everything. And so it's going to be expensive, and it's going to be a big pain in the ass. I think I'm going to do it this way. Anyways. I'm not much of a gardener, but I am trying to, as someone, well, as you guys might know from a video I made a few years ago, I'm trying to develop a bit more of a sense of autarky in my property. And so things like being able to grow some of my own food, I feel like is a good idea. To convert as much of the land that I own into food producing property would be great for me. Another thing I might even try to do in the future is I'm thinking of trying to get a rain barrel. I think that a rain barrel will be pretty useful where I am. So, but yeah, my kid at the moment is 17 months old, and so he can't really do much except like he's just right now like excited about the fact that he can walk. And then I will deal with, so next year he'll be like, almost 2.5, which will be perfect for getting him ready for learning how to make stuff, And the other problem I have with, I have several problems when it comes to gardening in my property, which is that the majority of my property, in fact, the entire backyard, this is both a good and a bad thing, but the entirety of my backyard is shade. There's like I have this humongous tree whose canopy basically shades my entire backyard, which means that it's really nice to play out there in the summertime because it's nice and cool, and it never gets like, you never have to worry about like, getting a sunburn or anything like that when you're out, but it means that growing plants is kind of a pain in the ass. The second is that I live in a neighborhood where there's a lot of black walnut trees, and black walnut trees are very poisonous to a lot of plants that you grow. So I can't really grow anything that isn't either a native species or has to grow in a raised bed, or I have to go in a raised bed. So I'm going to, if I grow like, vegetable crops, I'm going to have to grow them on my front lawn and with raised beds. Maybe ferns and other shade plants. Maybe. I don't care about growing anything that's not like food crops, basically. So I'm probably going to have to go with raised beds and put them up. Ideally, you'd have to use native species anyway. Yeah, to an extent. I mean, there's not a lot of like food crops that grow here natively. There are a couple, but there's not a lot. I have wanted to grow a Three Sisters plot at some point, but I think that will be a little bit of work. I'll have to do a little bit more. Research to do that right, but I do want to. There's a part of my backyard that I feel like I can turn into a garden that has maybe a little bit of light, and I want to turn that into a Three Sisters plot, which, for anyone who doesn't know, Three Sisters plots are how the indigenous people who lived here before, how they basically did their form of agriculture, which was planting these 3 different types of crops that are mutually reinforcing. You grow a stalk of corn that acts as like at the center, which acts as a, what's it called? Acts as sort of a straight up like stick. And then you grow beans, and the beans grow around the stalk of corn. And then you also grow some sort of squash, which the squash stays low to the ground, and it uses its leaves to cover the ground, which prevents weeds from growing around it. So the Three Sisters plot has been very successful, and I want to try that out. I feel like it would look really cool. And I'll probably use it to grow corn and corn, at least like sweet corn and pumpkins, because I really like pumpkin, and I'd like to grow. I'd love to make a pumpkin pie from scratch. That's like part of one of my squad goals is to make a pumpkin pie from scratch, because I really like pumpkin pie. Let's see. Oldest is 23 months in a week. You're in for a whole lot of fun over the next few weeks. Yeah. He's 17 months right now. He's going to be 18 months in early July. But he is, he just this week. So he knows how to walk. He's been able to walk for months. But just this week, he got comfortable walking without his, like, kind of like one of those, like, plastic push toys. He still loves his push toys. But lately, he has sort of given up on them and now starts to walk unassisted. And he seems to be really enjoying it to the point where he spends a good amount of his free time just doing laps around the dining room. Nothing else, just walking in circles around the dining room over and over and over again. He loves it. So I'm excited to see what happens. Because I've been told that once they kind of get walking down, that's when they start learning all of the words and they start talking back to you. And I'm like, oh man, that'll be wild to see. Look into fiddlehead ferns. Ooh, yeah, fiddleheads. Fiddleheads look cool too. Maybe I should grow fiddleheads. Any plant can be food if you give up. Yeah. Ostrich ferns are also good. Apparently they taste like asparagus. Nice. I do like asparagus. Yeah. So those are my wins. Just realized that I've got like baby snot or something on my shirt. Anybody else got some wins? It's all right if we don't. That is cool. I feel like if we have collected all of the wins, we have gotten a pretty amount of Talking is Amazing. You're in for a real treat. I feel like it's going to be really, really profound with a kid to watch as they cross that threshold from being a person who doesn't talk to a person who does talk. Like, and this is going to sound terrible, but trust me. When the kid can't talk, in your head, they still kind of occupy the space in your brain where a very beloved pet would be. And my guess is that when he starts talking is when, in my head, the categorization moves to like, oh, this is another person who lives in our house. Like, I know intellectually that this is a person who lives in the house. I'm talking about like on a very like gut level. Like, oh, you're a person that I can talk at now. Like, we can have a conversation, kind of. And I see how that goes. The next few months is apparently when like they really start talking, or really start picking up words and stuff. So pretty wild. Should be good. All right, if we are winned out, if we have exhausted all of our wins, then maybe I should start moving towards the questions. Or I could just bitch about AI for another little while, because yeah. Again, the way that we talk about AI is bad. Well, I think that there's a really great line that somebody told me the other day that is like a perfect encapsulation of the way that I was going to talk about things, which was let me see if I can find it. But it was basically like, the problem with a lot of AI stuff is that it came so quickly on the heels of like the NFT cryptocurrency bullshit, which was like a very obvious grift. And it was a technology that very obviously, like, it was a technology that a lot of like tech bros and stuff like that were saying was going to change the world, but it was really just a giant scam. And That was not the case. And then AI sort of followed afterwards. And the same people who grifted with NFTs and cryptocurrency and stuff like that latched onto artificial intelligence as like, oh, it's going to change everything. It's like, this is going to replace all art and all video games, like not even understanding what these things actually like are and how it fits. And the problem with that is that I feel like maybe there's this, I don't want to say like a lack of critical thinking in at least like the left Twitter spaces that I was seeing, but a sort of like a heuristic, I guess, that people seem to be under the impression like, oh, if this is a thing that bad people are saying is good, then therefore it must be bad. And they use the same misunderstandings of the technology that like the crypto bros are using for AI, and using that to say, oh, well, that's not how it works, so it's bad, and it's actually shit, and it's and needs to be destroyed, like like NFTs and cryptocurrency. This is a technology that can just be destroyed immediately. When like there's a lot of evidence that it's not the same thing. It's not the same. We're not seeing the same cycle. Artificial intelligence technology is being taken way more seriously than NFTs and cryptocurrency by people who actually know what they're talking about. The fact that like not like Microsoft and like IBM, like companies that have multi-decade long plans about what they do with their technological development. Like, first of all, AI is the result of technologies that several major computer science research firms and universities have been pushing for decades, finally coming to fruition. And like people who know a lot more about how these things work are a lot more impressed. The problem, so here's a couple ways to look at it. I don't know if you guys are bored, I'm sorry. But like there's a few different types of takes. One is, oh man, we're like, what's it called? We're on the cusp of artificial general intelligence, and this could be the beginning of the end of like, humanity. We're approaching the singularity or whatever. And very often that's being said by people who are trying to use that gravitas to essentially market for their AI tools. The people saying that ChatGPT version 4 is showing signs of actual general intelligence, is trying to sell you like, oh shit, I want to go pay $20 a month for ChatGPT. Let's do it. But that is not the, I don't anticipate that being the case. There is some like the next gen, there is some signs if you look at like what's going on in the open source space. There's some fairly interesting stuff that's like on the cusp of coming out, like when the next generations of AIs really come out, that there's some signs that there might be something that I would even say approaches an actual, maybe not a human level intelligence, but something that would approach a like actual thinking mind, or something that at least emulates one to a certain degree in the near term future, and that is vector memory, which is sort of this way of working as a long-term memory for a large language model. And second is what's right now kind of colloquially being called auto GPT, but it's a bigger term for what's good, like the next generation of like a lot of these things is going to do, which is having like giving a prompt or an instruction and then splitting that prompt or instruction across multiple different threads of lines, where the neural network is taking the prompt, trying to figure out solutions, like various different solutions at different times. And when it proposes a solution, evaluating its own solution, finding a better solution, and in a way, simulating the process that we have for reasoning out different solutions to problems. And the thing, though, is that unlike a human brain, these things can run like multiple parallel versions of these reasonings at the same time and come up with what it thinks or evaluates as the best answer. And so you could see in the near-term future a lot of processes that look like cognition and memory, which could could change things, and especially is interesting because unlike a lot of the it's a software solution, not a hardware solution, which is always a sign that something's going to advance a lot faster, because the other way of like getting, these large language models to be more intelligent involves larger and larger training data sets, which we've already seen is computationally extremely taxing and is also a humongous use of energy. The amount of like energy and computing power that went into training ChatGPT-4 was quite big. And to do whatever ChatGPT-5 is going to look like, it'll be more complicated. But I think that there's other ways that are going to look around it. Either way, there's at the moment, artificial intelligence tools have things that they are very good at. They also have a lot of things that they aren't very good at. And in many ways, they're still they're going to replace a lot fewer jobs than a lot of the prophets say they are. And yet it's not like this completely useless tool like some naysayers would naysay about. So hopefully, I know this is probably boring you guys, but it's the thing that's preeminently on my mind at the moment. So, and this is the stream where I basically just ramble for 2 hours. So, sorry, that's what you're here for. That's the entertainment you came here for. Are you not entertained? The fact that I'm getting paid by having 30 people come to watch me just ramble incoherently about technology. All right. Let's see. The AI art will absolutely destroy the independent commission art industry, leaving only room for the biggest artists and no room for small artists to grow. Maybe. I don't think we're quite at that point yet. I think that AI art is, it definitely will replace a lot of small-time commission work, but it is still, it's still not quite at the point, and it's still quite a ways away from some of the points that I think that fills a lot of the actual tangible work of artists. Specifically their design skills and their concepts of like framing and responding to feedback and all those kinds of things. AI art can definitely fill in for a lot of random bullshit, and it definitely will, and it will definitely be tough for the commission artist industry. But it also is not going to be a replacement for like hiring somebody to design a logo for you who can understand and can play with symbolism and negative space and all that kind of stuff. Second, and furthermore, like if you want a small variation or a change, they're not going to be able to produce like the exact same thing, except this person's holding a hammer instead of a knife. Like you're not going to be able to do that because it's all based on noise and diffusion and all that kind of stuff. And furthermore, there's another angle that hasn't been talked about in the sort of angry artist space, which is that there is a growing class of artists who use AI art tools as a way to produce their own art, and in ways that would be tougher for people to not recognize as art unless you don't think that collage is art. Because there is some people who are talking about how they're using AI generated pictures and then taking those pictures, taking a bunch of them, putting them into Photoshop, and through different manipulations and and things like that, making their own creations in a way of photoshopping different pieces together and changing some textures and colors and things like that. And if you use Stable Diffusion, you can hey, I'm going to draw this and then put it back into the AI, and it's going to spruce things up, and then I'll take it out and I'll mess around with some other stuff. And then kind of there's there is like a new kind of art coming out of the technology as well, which I think will be also be like a kind of new frontier in creativity that could lead to some other interesting things. But that's not to say that it's not going to be disruptive, and it's not going to make it a lot harder to be a self-sufficient commission artist, because you're either going to, because what's going to happen is either it's going to make the productivity go so high that if you're somebody who doesn't use these tools, you're going to fall behind because you can't produce art fast enough to, because like what will happen is it'll make it producing art faster, which will make the price point go down on commissioning art, which means that if you're not somebody who uses these tools to make it, you're going to have to work extra hard to keep up, and at some point a human being will not be able to keep up. Or there's just going to be people who would commission something really simple and that can be done with just like a couple Mid-Journey prompts, and like that's already like a problem. Like there's already a legal precedent that it can't be copyrighted, and furthermore, like I feel like that doesn't fit a lot of commission cases, but I could be wrong. And also, that's a problem at the moment, but I do think that that as this technology does mature, and especially as the AI art program mixes into the sort of like auto multi-threaded ChatGPT thing, there could be some more complicated situations that come out of that. But that is still a couple years away, I think. All right. Well, how's it going to interact with Dungeons and Dragons? Oh, I have already had a lot of success using ChatGPT to do some D&D stuff. Not to like GM for me, but to like help me brainstorm ideas. Like for example, I'm running a campaign right now that takes place in it's based on the Everworld books, but it's a campaign where everybody in the group is playing their own selves, and they're bouncing between this universe where all of the pagan gods basically created a mirror version of Earth that they left for when like Christianity started taking over the Earth, because Christianity is secretly a front for like faith, like aliens that feed off human faith, but that's a different part of the story. But it means that like the players spend their time in sort of halfway between these two worlds. And in this fictional universe, they're in Alexandria, and I'm making a dungeon that is supposed to be the tomb of Alexander the Great. And I was really struggling to think about like brainstorming ideas for like what could be some cool encounters that you could do that would be very iconically the tomb of Alexander the Great. And it came up with some pretty cool stuff. One of the things that they had was that you should have in the tomb of Bucephalus, which was Alexander the Great's horse, apparently. And that also his closest ally, Hephaestion, could have his soul like pledged in the afterlife to defend Alexander's tomb for all time. And I wanted to have like a secret path in that could avoid like a lot of the main dungeon, that if they can find the secret path, they could do it. And I decided to have it so that there's a statue of Bucephalus in the city that has a secret entrance. If you put a very specific bridle onto Bucephalus, you can go into this thing. And it had this idea of making a trap that's like between the two, where you run into a bunch of a bunch of Gordian knots. That is sort of like a bunch of animated ropes that tie you up in Gordian knots and stuff like that. So, yeah, and I'm pretty excited because the whole idea of the adventure is that they're in Alexandria because they're trying to get to the Greek island of Milos. So they're trying to get out of Egypt, but when they arrived in the city, it came under siege by a group of desert nomads. who also ride giant siege engines that are like this species of humongous scarab. It's going to be really cool whenever we get together to actually play. Summertime is always really rough for RPG campaigns. Anyways, the nomads are planning on sieging Alexandria specifically because they want to go into Alexander's tomb, and the leader wants to take Alexander's personal effects, his spear and his curious, his like kind of like Greek hoplite armor and his helmet. And I have this idea that Alexander's like, you know, his weapons and armor are still on his body. And if you are to take these items and put them on, you would sort of be imbued with Alexander's spirit, and you would become really powerful, but you would be overcome with an urge to essentially conquer the world. And part of why they keep this stuff in Alexandria, and like there's like a whole dungeon built up around it, is because his presence actually protects the city somewhat, but they also want to make sure that nobody ever dons this stuff again to continue Alexander's like sort of conquest of the world all over again. So, and we'll see what happens when the party actually gets through the dungeon and they actually get to Alexander's items and what they choose to do with that shit. And then they have to go to, and then after that they have to go to Milos, which is a Greek island because it has a volcano, and that is where, in my setting anyway, Hephaestus is. And Hephaestus has like a community there, and they have to meet with, because each of the characters are all they are all imbued with power by the work of one of the gods. They all have like a patron deity that is sort of responsible for their power set. And our artificer is from Hephaestus, and she needs to get his blessing and get his like mythical, I think it's like a hammer that I think I made for her to wield. And then like we got one character who's like they got to go to Ireland or to Hyperion to get Brigitte's blessing. Brigid, the sort of Celtic goddess of poetry and music. To get her like instrument. It's for the bard, obviously. Then they have to go to Sweden, Svithjad or whatever, to go visit the temple of Loki, because one of the people is a wild magic sorcerer, and his patron god is Loki, and they have to get his staff fixed and repower. And then there's one guy who's like, he's like this super, super nice guy who's like a business major. And I had it so that he was chosen by the Aztec god Huitzilopochtli, who's like the god of war. So they're going to have to go to Mexico. And then they're going to have to go to Indonesia, because one of the players, she kind of spent some of her childhood in Indonesia and wanted to have Indonesian gods play a role in the game. And so I had her associate with this like Javanese goddess of the Indian Ocean or something like that, because she's like a water-focused druid too. So I don't know. I'm pretty proud of this campaign idea. And we're kind of playing this, and in between, we're doing like, we're kind of like bits of this, and then when we finish like a chapter of the campaign, we then like go, we kind of bounce between that and a Blades in the Dark campaign that we've been running for a long time, where they're playing a sort of was it Burke and Hare? Is that what their names were? Yeah, Burke and Hare, where they're kind of doing this like this campaign where, because like Blades in the Dark is like a game where you play a gang in like a sort of like fantasy Victorian setting, and they're playing like resurrectionists who steal corpses for the anatomy school. And so and they're getting in over their head because it's like a city I don't know, because of the setting of Blades in the Dark, when people die, their ghosts, like there's no afterlife anymore, so their ghosts just leave and cause havoc. So there's like a rule in the city where all bodies soon after death are collected and taken to these like crematoria to be instant, like spiritual crematoria that destroys their soul so that they don't come back as ghosts and cause havoc in town. And so we reasoned that means that like having bodies, like human bodies to do like anatomy work with, are actually going to be pretty rare. And so we've been playing with that idea, and that's what this gang is all about. It's pretty cool. Because like we had it so that there's like this ethnic group that has an insistence on burial rights, and that they've negotiated a sort of semi, like it's illegal, but the government overlooks it, process of smuggling the recently dead of this ethnic group out of the city on trains to a burial ground that's outside the city where their like lightning barrier blocks off the ghosts from getting in. And they bury them there. And like we did a whole mission or a heist where they offered to help this ethnic group transport one of these bodies, but instead they stole the body, put it in like in a wagon that then left, and then they buried a gimp suit that they had purchased in the funerary cloth instead, and rode on the trains. They could take it out and bury it, and then they decided to like steal a bunch of like bodies there. It's wild. It's so wild. And we had like a whole adventure on a train that was covered in like this lightning barrier to keep the ghosts out. It's fucking wild. Blades in the Dark is such a cool game. Okay. My first ever D&D character turned level 20 at the beginning of the month. Nice. Love when a character gets to level 20. Huh. Okay. But yeah, all this to say, AI can be useful for especially for like brainstorming different ideas. Like I love the idea that I can be like, hey, I've got these players. They like this, this, and this. They're sort of themed around this. Can you make me can you brainstorm the idea of an adventure that incorporates all the different ways that my players like to play and incorporates all, has connections to all of their backstories? Go. And it thinks of some pretty cool ideas. It's actually pretty clever, especially GPT-4, the more advanced version that you can get by paying for the subscription, which I do. So, yeah. Okay. Guess I should probably answer some questions, huh? We're like almost an hour in. Maybe I should answer like a single question. I feel like I haven't got any. Can someone just submit a test question? It seems like I haven't gotten a question submitted since June 14th. And I just want to make sure that like the tool that I have that automatically sends questions to this thing works. So if somebody could, maybe I'll just do it for myself. But you can use AI to solo play D&D. Yeah, you can kind of. The problem is that, as I mentioned, like AI's got like a lot of the models right now have like a limited context memory, which means that they'll forget stuff. Okay, it does look like people just haven't submitted questions. That's fine. Okay, let's start with the first question, I guess. I've been thinking about watching Boardwalk Empire recently. Do you think it's a fair criticism of that series is that it doesn't really show how people's conceptions of race were different in the 1920s? Like we see black bootleggers dealing with racism a lot, but we never really come up with the Italians, even though they wouldn't be considered white at the time. Hell, I'm pretty sure Nucky would barely be seen as white, being a second generation Irishman American in the 20s. Yeah, I mean, they do play with it a little bit, but yeah, you're definitely not as much as you would think, or as you'd want. Yeah, it does take out a little bit of that kind of thing. You are right. I don't think it subtracts too much from the show, especially because if I remember correctly, a lot of the show just takes place amongst like Irish and Italian and black communities. Like there's not a lot of like waspy people in the show. At least as far as I remember, I never finished it. And also someone's talking about solo D&D. Solo D&D is fun. It's useful for like it's like a fun creative exercise. It's not like it's definitely very different from like playing a regular game. But I think that it's still pretty useful. I've had a lot of fun playing solo RPGs. I'm doing a really weird one right now where I'm playing a solo Pathfinder game, but the Pathfinder game is sort of acting as a like I made a setting that my other campaigns are in, that most of my like fantasy RPG campaigns take place in. And in the last campaign that I ran, there was like a big sort of history that they played around with and they like talked about. And I was thinking that I could make a campaign that was like me playing the history out. Because if it's all me, then I know that I can stay consistent with my own setting because I know what happened, so I can kind of like knowingly work around that kind of stuff. And through that play, sort of create the setting that we really want. Ugh. Yo, hi, thanks for nice content. Oh, thank you very much. China video was good. Thank you, Meow Nyan. I'm glad people liked it. AI can do cool stuff. The issue is the blue checkmark tech bro slush brains screaming it's going to go Skynet on us. Yeah, that's definitely the problem. Did you miss the W's? You just missed the W's, but we are happy to accept any W's, even late W's. My user nickname is pronounced like Sheamuth, also the name of my old D&D character. Okay, good to know. All right, next question I got here is, given how you and many of us in your audience are some form of neurodiverse, do you have any ideas for videos on the history of neurodiverse people? This idea has come to me many, many times over the years. I've had more than one YouTuber who's asked me to, or more than one like viewer who's written to me asking about like, hey, why don't you talk about like the history of autism or something like that? And I have always... I've engaged with the idea a few times, and I've thought about it. I don't know if I will make that video, just because. I mean, there's several reasons. One is that I can already feel, like in my bones, that is not a video that will get a lot of views, which shouldn't always dictate what kind of videos I make. It probably should dictate it more, because I feel like I often make a choice because I want to make the video and I think it'll be successful, instead of like, or I far too often make videos because I want to make them and I think the topic is interesting, and don't consider that like nobody in my audience wants to watch that shit. So I probably should do that more, but I know that like I can almost guarantee that like a video about neurodiversity from a channel like a history channel would flop, and probably flop pretty hard. Should I do it anyway? That would be another thing that would be like, okay, well, what thing do I want to hit with that? Like, in order to make a YouTube video that's really successful, I need to be like either speaking to a moment in the future that will be relevant to it, and it could be a time where just like it's really important to make a video on this subject right now, or I'm betting on like, long-term Google search stuff, which will result in usually a video that does very poorly, but might, show itself to be successful over years of like people looking that up as like a question. But I haven't been able to think through an angle or a way to present the video that would result in it getting the sort of upfront success that I would need to be comfortable putting it up on YouTube and like, selling Nebula with it, so that I can pay my mortgage and eat food. But if I was, and also, like disability history is a complex and nuanced topic that I don't have a ton of expertise in. But let's hope that maybe there might be another angle to go through with it. But at the moment, I this is an idea that has been incubating for a number of years. But maybe something will present itself, and I will be able to make the big diverse video. But there's a lot more considerations at play, and at some point, maybe I'll have the right way to approach it. Looking back at the ADA would be a good start. Sure, just the ADA, like, I could also say that a video on the ADA would not do well. It's not a thing people are talking about right now. Like, I don't know. I'd have to like really chew on it or see what other people have done. But I have enough of a sense. We have to make them talk about it. Sure, I don't have the platform to do something like that. I'm not like, what's it called? I'm not like, I'm not Harry Bomber guy. I can't just make a video on a topic and force it into being a thing that we talk about. I'm not that big of a YouTuber. I can't do that. Maybe in the future. Maybe in the future I'll be able to do. Or also, this is definitely the kind of thing I could make as like, and I have plans to sort of do this, which is that I plan on making some videos that might not do well. Like I don't instinctively think they're going to do well on YouTube, but I really want to make them and use them as a way to sweeten the Nebula pot, if you will. Like make some videos that just are Nebula exclusive videos, and then I'll be like, hey, if you like, I've been wanting to make a Santa Muerte video for a long time, although now I'm starting to get convinced that a Santa Muerte video might be like actually successful on YouTube. But a video like that then if I put up on Nebula would see success, or at least would be like a good way for me to enhance my selling point for when I do my Nebula spots on YouTube. And in that case, then I can be a little bit more open source with what I talk about for something like that. But it's almost all of the time in my month to make one video a month at the moment, so I'd have to figure out where that would fit in my extremely busy process of cranking out one video a month, let alone like two or something like that. Recently dropped your TYT membership in favor of adopting a Nebula membership. Nice. I'm very curious about Santa Muerte, and I feel like it would be a really cool. The thing is that, like, the reason why I think Santa Muerte, like, I'm starting to think it would actually be a successful video, is because it is a topic people are very curious about, and it has to do with American history and Mexican-American relations, which is also a subject that people are talking about. The topic of, like, and it also gets into another thing that would work is that Santa Muerte would also work because it talks about like the cartels, because as a lot of people know, Santa Muerte, the sort of Santa Muerte has a lot of association with Mexican organized crime, and so like, you know, I'd probably cover it more for like what kind of, like, how it sociologically plays a role in things. But yeah, it's been a video I've wanted to make for years. But like I said, it's not something that I don't want to make. It's something that I would need to either have the clout to be able to actually properly make, or I would need to find a way to make it so that it would be, that it could come out and be useful in a context that would actually sell, if you will. I'm sorry that I have to think like this. Like, I know that this sounds so cynical, and that it's not like I don't think that neurodiverse people don't deserve to have their story told. And I would love to find a way to do it, either by finding an angle to cover so that it would do well, or which, you know, in the end is just a, like, lack of, like, it's maybe just me just not being imaginative enough to have that connection, or to think that, to think that way. Or it's just, yeah, we'll see. But I hope that I am making sense. I know that's like a tough way to talk about it, but yeah. And actually, like, this kind of brings it into, because I've gotten several, like, people who have, like, come at me with recommendations for videos that I should make. I will say that, like, your chances of being successful on that front are a lot higher if you can pitch to me why it's, like, relevant for people in modern day, what kind of angle would be interesting to go down, why it might tie into something that's going on right now. Those kinds of things help out quite a bit, and definitely help chances. I often will get requests that are just like, do a video on this, do a video on I think, like, one time I got like a thing that was like, do a video on some, like, anarchist collective that existed in Korea in the 1930s, and I was just like, how the fuck would I sell that? Like, I get that it's probably cool, but, you know, there are more factors at play than just make a cool thing, sadly. I'm not big enough. I can't just do a 3-hour video about, what was the name of that, like, really bad video game that H-Bomber guy made, like, a huge video about, where you're, like, trying to solve a cure a disease or something? But one day. Pathologic. There you go. But yeah, it's not you're not the first person to have suggest the concept to me, and I've grumbled for quite a while about how I would do it. If it ever comes to me, that would be great. Okay. Non-video suggestion question this time. With recent talks on Fox News and GOP politicians wanting to invade Mexico, and now Canada because wokeism, and now wildfire smoke, is there a mass fear of America invading Canada anytime soon? Or y'all calling bluff, or the right will focus on Mexico and forget Canada? I don't see that being very likely, honestly. I don't. In many ways, I think it's just like the right ballyhooing about stupid shit, trying to fluff up each other's anger. But like, nobody who actually has any ability to push through American like military projects actually has talked about this in any serious fashion. And in many cases, like the international community, if the US decided to just invade Mexico for no reason, or Canada because of wokeism, would be like an absolute, like, you know, diplomatic disaster for everybody involved. If the US legitimately tried to invade Canada, a fellow NATO country, a fellow, like a G7 country, and like one of their closest and longest historical allies, it would be it's ridiculous on the face of it. Do I have concerns that there might be something like this in the like long-term future? Like if like sort of like what's it called, the Aguila friggin' aquifer dries up and they need our fresh water. Even then, I don't think that an invasion of Canada is likely. I think that they will demand our resources and Canada will just give them up, because I think Canada would sacrifice a lot more of its sovereignty to prevent getting onto America's bad side before they would submit to invasion. But I don't anticipate it's going to. I feel like we're fairly far away from like, we're going to do an anti-woke invasion of Canada or invading Mexico or whatever. Mexico and Canada are the US's like two largest trading partners, and both like their governments all have very close relationships with each other. We're part of a fucking free trade network. Like it would be more likely like to deal with like immigration issues or with like organized crime for the US's DEA to coordinate with Mexico's federal agents to organize operations in northern Mexico. In fact, they have done that before. They have worked together before on things like that. And so like that is like war is not the option they would go with, because Mexico and the United States have a pretty like long-standing historical relationship, and they've collaborated and cooperated on a lot of things. Same with Canada and the U.S. Canada and the U.S. have been allies for like over 100 years. There hasn't been hostilities between Canada and the U.S. since 1814. So things would have to so it doesn't really concern me. In Chud news, CTV called a homophobe intimidating activist controversial tactics, and transphobes in Thunder Bay forced local Pride Org to throw trans people under the bus. Oh, geez. I have heard that there's like there's in Canada, like Pride flags are becoming like a spicy issue in schools. And I was at a Pride event in London last weekend, and that resulted in some very silly, like, what's it called, caravan type people. But it's not great, that's for sure. I do think, though, that like the anti-LGBT hysteria in Canada just does not have the same amount of energy as it does in the US. It's just like it's almost being universally reported on as a bad thing, and pretty much everybody seems to hate this like anti-LGBT bullshit. A lot of people seem to interpret it as for what it is, like weird cultural conservatism coming in from the US. And unless you're one of those weirdos who votes for fucking what's his face, fucking the People's Party or whatever, you're not going to take it seriously. I don't even think it's that popular in the US. I think that the Republican Party fixating so hard on oppressing trans people hurt them in the 2022 election. And so I don't think, I think that it's not even that popular in the US, and that the media frames it as more popular than it is. And the places where they're having successes are in areas that there's typically not a lot of energy in at the best of times, and will probably bite them in the ass at the ballot box when the next election comes up next year. And I think that in Canada, it's even more unpopular, because if there's one thing that a lot of Canadians don't respond well to is buying into weird culture wars that the Americans are obsessed with, or two, just cultural conservatism in general isn't popular here. Like, our anti-abortion activists are mocked and ridiculed, and nobody takes them seriously, and our our anti-LGBTQ people are even the caravan people are portrayed pretty universally as insane right-wing wackos. It just won't fly in Canadian political culture. I'm not saying that it couldn't, but at the current moment, I don't think we're at that point. Canada's political culture is way more fixated on our absolute disdain for the environment. The issue that is going to drive every election in Canada and drive everything is just the fact that Canada is such a primary resource-focused economy that our single-minded effort to focus on the extraction of oil from Alberta is not feasible with the continued existence of humans on Earth. And that is what most elections actually come down to these days. They usually interpret it as jobs, which is very bad framing for, avoiding the apocalypse. Because, even, the caravan people who hate Trudeau, you drill down enough, and the thing that they hate Trudeau for is having any environmental policy. At the end of the day, every election in Canada these days comes down to whether you are for or against the continued existence of humanity. And the sad part is that in Canada, the being against the continued existence of humanity is winning. Caravan is a migrant one? Okay, yeah, the convoy people. And if you look into it, the thing is the convoy people, they're all from fucking Alberta, which is the fucking petrol province. You don't see the Canadian right that's that's not focused on oil has barely been doing anything. The right-wing groups in Quebec, where the fuck are they? The answer is because Quebec gets all of its power from fucking hydroelectric dams and mining, so they don't have to worry about oil. Oil is not a factor for them, so their right doesn't really give a shit about those kinds of things. And they're not super activated because at the end of the day, resource extraction is the main thing that our country cares about. Well, actually, what's it called? The Quebecois right is almost exclusively focused on discriminating against Muslims. which is probably just because their political culture is plugged more into the kind of culture wars that are happening in the French media sphere, the French internet and the French news sphere, which is, focused around like the kind of like anti-Muslim, anti-religious discrimination that's happening in places like France or happening in Quebec. Okay, yeah, I know that there are convoy supporters in like all over the place. I pass by at least one of them on my regular walks, but I will say like the convoy, like if you look at the issues they really care about, like the main thing that they are pissed off about, on top of like they're like all just they hate like yeah they're trying to push their culture war stuff, but they hated COVID restrictions. But the main thing at the end of the day that they're mostly motivated by is the carbon tax. They hate the carbon tax. That is the thing that drove them fucking insane. And that is the thing that they like will absolutely like go frothing fucking crazy over, is that they hate the fact that we're doing anything about climate change. And that they are pro climate change people. And by that they mean that they want more climate change. But that's because I don't know. It's because Canada has some actual distinction in their political culture between like different positions, because we have like the New Democrats and we also have a Liberal Party that claims to care about climate change, while like America has two like virtually identical political parties at this point. But again, like I think that this comes down to the fact that we ingest a lot of American media, but at the end of the day, Canada is a different country from the US. Our economy works very different. Our people are very different. Our political issues are different. Actually, I just remembered that apparently today Canada is supposed to pass 40 million people. So our country grew to 40 million Canadians today. Yay. Could they honestly think climate change would be good for Canada by shifting the warm areas and opening up farmland where the tundra is currently? There are some people who argue that way, but a lot of convoy people just don't care about climate change, and they think that all environmental policy does is slow down and hurt the economy. And from their perspective, the only thing that matters is whether is jobs, and jobs. And so, and they're convinced that environmental policy hurts jobs because more environmental destruction means more jobs. And so the more jobs you can get, the more jobs. More jobs? More jobs, economy, jobs. That's the way. That's like Canadian political culture has actively rejected, a lot of times cultural conservatism. So like racist bullshit and anti-LGBTQ stuff is still kind of like gauche to talk about in like mainstream Canadian culture. So all of our right-wing politics is just jobs, tax cuts, jobs, economy, jobs. Most of it is built upon the fact that we have that Canada is what's called a primary resource extraction economy, which means that if you were to look at our economic output, it primarily comes from things like mining, logging, farming. Actually, not farming really. Logging and farming, or logging and mining, and oil. Those are like the main things that our economy is built upon. This means that our economy has not invested in infrastructure. It has not invested in like long-term post oil stuff. So, and there's no thinking beyond what is just the next thing. And in Canada, to conservatives, the next thing is more resource extraction. There's always more to do. And primarily because Canada's biggest export now is petrol, or should I just say crude. That there's this idea, and because the Alberta, the province that makes all of the crude, has invested nothing in a post-oil economy. They have no capital fund. They have no infrastructure. They basically just used their oil money to get rid of taxes. And now that their oil industry is floundering, and they realize that the province has nothing to build up on, which the thing is, in a primary extraction economy, is you have a lot of these boom and bust cycles, because you have the point when like the new resource has been tapped and we're tapping it and tapping it and tapping it, and then the price goes down and everything collapses. Or the environment can't handle the extraction we're doing, we slow down and everything stops. There's a reason why Fort McMurray, the place where they make a lot of the oil in Alberta, is full of people from fucking Newfoundland, because Newfoundland is a province that used to have a primary resource extraction economy, which was fishing, until we depleted the cod supply and had to put like some extreme controls on the amount of fishing we did, which resulted in the Newfoundland economy fucking tanking. And because and now there's like widespread poverty in Newfoundland, there's like no jobs and people live pretty rough lives there. So a lot of them go to where there is jobs, which is Fort McMurray. Some people to get jobs go to northern Quebec, or they go to the Arctic to dig up for gold, or they go to BC to do softwood lumber mining. Even like in Canada, like they go to Northern Ontario to go mine for like, I don't know, nickel and uranium and shit. And that part of the thing is that, you know, you have these boom and bust towns. And so you always have this thing where there's a province that is making all of the money, and our entire economy focuses on that one thing for a while, and everyone moves there. And then when it dries up, everything falls apart because we don't plan for the future. The Liberal Party is trying to at least future-proof a little bit by doing stuff like establishing, like, you know, building up our service sector economy, like, you know, what I'm doing, or like the software company, like, I don't know, Ubisoft, I guess, is like one of our it's our big video game company over in Montreal. Or you know, Toronto with its finance sector, or you know, all those kinds of things. That's like, you know, the thing that we would be doing next. But yeah, Ubisoft bad, yeah, pretty bad. I never was around for I went to a school where Ubisoft used to hire a lot of our. I was in the history department at a Quebecois university, and they used to take undergraduate students to do like research projects where they would work on history for Assassin's Creed games, I think. I never did it because I couldn't speak well enough French for it, but it was a thing that my school used to do. Hey, thank you for the 2 GBP super chat from 255. Have I given up on Twitch? At the moment, yeah. Twitch is proceeding on its enshittification project, and I don't really want to be a part of that. That's a video I need to make something about. I think that would do well. Is about the kind of concept that Cory Doctorow's been selling around these days called enshittification. Which I think is very important for understanding why like every social media platform right now looks like it's like shitting the bed super hard. Because they're not profitable, and they're not getting a lot more venture capital anymore because people are sort of like clamping down their assets at the moment. So they're trying to find a way to make more revenue. And the way they make more revenue is by squeezing either side of the people that they're a platform for. The term enshittification is catching on. It's pretty good because there's like a process that social media companies go through where first, when they're rich with venture capital, they try to take over an entire industry. So they usually come on and offer like a real sweetheart deal for creators and consumers. Uber shows up on the scene and makes it so that you're paid decent as a driver, and that you get these taxi rides that are like way cheaper than getting a regular taxi, and it just seems like the sweetheart deal, because it's like, hey, this is too good to be true, because it's being done on the backs of Uber's. The company is losing money on all these things, but the point is that they don't care about losing money on these things, because the plan is to basically destroy all of the other parts of the economy of that field and become what's called a monopoly and a monopsony, which is a monopoly is when you have control over all the production, and monopsony is when you have control over all of the consumers. Like, for example, Amazon is a huge monopsony because most people will go to Amazon first for all of their purchases. So that means that if you're a company that produces something, you have to submit to whatever Amazon wants, because if you don't, you're not going to get a lot of business. So companies will show up, and they'll be flush with money, and they'll use their money to basically sell things for cheaper than they actually are and take over the platform. And this doesn't have to literally be products. Like, it could be something like Uber, but it also could be something like Twitter, making a really cool open platform, or Reddit making a really cool open platform where you can do whatever you want. Then, when they need to make money, the first people that they go to squeeze are the people at the bottom, the consumers. So this is like when Uber started to charge a lot more for their rides after they had basically taken over the thing, because they're trying to extract more. Once they can't really grow past owning the entire industry, they then try to extract more. The only way for a middleman to make money at that situation is to extract more money from either side. So Uber tries to extract more money from its riders by jacking up the prices. Now that there's really no taxis anymore, they can just make it so that their Ubers cost more than taxis, and people will still buy it because they have to. And then when that is done, then they start screwing over their producers, and they start like Amazon has been increasing its fees on sellers, which make sellers have to raise their prices. And you see YouTube is sort of bucking this trend, but you see things like TikTok starting to clamp down on monetization, and things like Reddit's absolutely ransom of API fees that they're putting in, or Twitch with its revenue sharing model that is extremely becoming extremely shitty, and trying to clamp down on any way for streamers to make money that doesn't have them in the middle extracting profit in the process. And when you hit that point, the enshittification is in full swing, and they start clamping down on both sides, and it usually ends up killing the platform until a new platform with all of the VC money comes in and starts the process all over again. This is sort of the process on how current tech companies do their thing. And it seems like a lot of companies, because of the sort of economic hiccups of the pandemic, they're going through their enshittification process even faster, which is sort of the death spiral of a lot of social media platforms. So Twitch might not last forever, because Twitch has never been profitable. And now they're trying to force themselves to be profitable, which means they probably have marching orders to be profitable. And if they can't do it, it will go down. Same with Reddit, same with Twitter, etc., etc., etc. What's happening to Twitter? Can you think of another instance of someone buying a major company then intentionally making it less profitable for ideological reasons? Nothing that instantly comes to mind. Not right now, anyway. I guess there was that hiccup a few months ago or weeks ago when that guy took over CNN and was like, "Now I'm gonna make CNN anti-woke," and he did one thing where he showed a Trump rally, and people hated it so much that he basically got booted out as CEO right afterwards. All right. Sorry, I got distracted. All right, let's do another question. Can you speak to the idea how you would form a content creators union / cooperative network? Think big. Imagine we had access to capital. In many ways, like I like a little, like, basically something that's on the vein of like what we're doing with Nebula, like creating a network of creators who own their own platform and build something that is uniquely ours from the process. Now, Nebula's not, it's a business. It's not a union, but the idea of making something that is like, this is the site where like the profit that's being extracted by watching us goes directly to us. And representing enough people that you have the negotiating power to negotiate better relationships with sponsors that actually like pay us what we're worth instead of like rapidly exploiting us, and having enough influence that you can, like, you know, talk to people at YouTube and they would actually listen, or whatever platform of choice. But that's definitely what I would go for. Scart Archibald. Hi, Tristan. Came across your content fairly recently, but I've really enjoyed and found eye-opening and informative. Thank you. Look forward to your content. Thank you. Is Nebula a worker-owned co-op then? No, it's a bit more complicated than that, but there's a lot of collective ownership involved. At least collective profiting when it comes to like Nebula and stuff like that. But like, I don't have a boss or anything like that. It's sort of, I don't know, it's hard to explain. And I feel like if I explain, you know what? There's a great new video by Wendover Productions that kind of explains how it works. And given how many of us are in Nebula, I feel like it would be a pretty good thing to watch to understand why it like works. But, I mean, life-changing money. For me, anyway. If it wasn't for Nebula, I probably wouldn't be making YouTube videos now. I will say that. All right. A while back, Mildred did a really great video about their ideal world called Slime World. They finished it asking for others to submit their own videos about their ideal worlds. And to my knowledge, no one has. Would you ever do that? It's a bit outside the box that YouTube has put you in, but I think you'd be able to think of aspects of the world that Mildred didn't focus on. That's an interesting idea. Again, yeah, it would be pretty tough for me to... That would not be a video I could put a sponsorship on because, obviously... Not a bad idea, but also... I haven't really, like... I don't really have a lot of things to do. Like I haven't thought super hard about like what my idealistic society would look like. I have some ideas, but I don't really have like a ton of things like that like would be detailed enough to turn into a whole video. I did answer the Boardwalk Empire question, yes. But maybe that would be a good intellectual and creative exercise. I think Mexi did a whole video about how we need to be using our sort of radical imagination to think of like new ways of structuring society that would work well. And that maybe I should be one of the ones to do that. Every time something like that happens, I'm just like, why do people think that I am like prescient or like galaxy brain enough that I could think of a way to design like the perfect society? I don't think there's anybody who's smart enough to make the perfect society. I don't know. Seems like a thing that I would, it just feels like really like, I don't know, not like a thing that I would do really well. That it feels like a thing that's like kind of conceited, but I could try it out. Binging your content. What would you do if not YouTube? At this point, it really like if I was there's two ways to answer that question. What would I from that from Kick? There are two ways I could think about it. One, what would I be doing if there wasn't YouTube ever? Like if I didn't get into YouTube? And what would I do if, like, I don't know, my channel got shut down tomorrow for some reason? If I never did YouTube, I probably would have finished my history PhD, and then I probably would have been on the what's it called? I probably would be currently on the like adjunct hamster wheel, furiously trying to write a book while teaching like way too many classes and traveling all around and having to do a bunch of stuff. If my YouTube channel was destroyed tomorrow and I had to like start over from scratch and do something different, I would probably, I've thought about this a little bit because, you know, as I mentioned with Nebula, before I joined Nebula, I was like this close to having to quit YouTube. YouTube has given me a lot of experience in project management and communications. And so I have thought of everything from being producer at a video game studio to like communications manager for different companies and nonprofits and stuff like that. I mean, I was CCLA's communication coordinator for a year. So there's like, I could try to do something to do with like making content and media for other people. For wealth and knowledge, no one make the perfect society. It'd be good to think of better worlds. Yeah, it might be worth giving a try. I don't know if I would do it. I don't know if I would make it as a video. I don't know if I need to make it as a video. Maybe I'll make it as like a blog post or something, you know? All right, let's see. Have I heard about Minnesota's awesome legislation session lately? Legal cannabis, free college, trans protections, to name a few. I have not. That's pretty sweet. That's good news. Awesome. All right, let's see. Fuck it. Might as well air my issues here. I have a problem with my D&D group. They're becoming more right-wing populist, and it's really taking the fun away from me. A few years ago, I asked them to tone it down, and this was followed for a while, but now they are getting worse and worse. I'm thinking of leaving the group, but the issue is that I have lost a lot of friend groups already, and I can't really replace a tabletop RPG group over here. Do you have any advice? I mean, I would say that you should articulate your feelings in a way that is a bit more about, like, you know, takes more into consideration how their actions make you feel. And honestly, if they can't respect your feelings enough to do that, then yeah, then it's not a group of people. It's never, in many ways, it's worth it to not have friends than to have friends that treat you like shit. And people who don't respect your boundaries and your feelings about things are not really good friends. And maybe there are other D&D groups to find. But I would first there is the possible chance that they're just caught up in the fantasyness of it, and that they aren't thinking through their actions, and they don't realize the effect it's happening on you, or at least you've already articulated it before, but maybe they don't realize how much it's affecting you. And in which case, communicating that first would probably be the best option. All right. Do you think it's problematic that Anakin Skywalker's moral event horizon moment is killing the mostly human kids in the Jedi Temple and not genociding the Sand people that killed his mother? I mean, the Tusken Raiders are kind of coded Arab, and Padme's underreacting to his confession kind of gives the impression that humans in the Star Wars universe don't see them as fully people. I've actually had arguments with other sci-fi fans who don't think what Anakin did was bad because they also think Tusken Raiders aren't properly people. I mean, it's almost as if the Star Wars prequel movies are bad and poorly written. Almost. Yeah, I do think that was an overlooking. It was awful. I mean, I think it was framed in the movie that it was supposed to show that he was starting to cross lines, that he was already like, morally loose in a lot of ways. Like, I don't think it was ever framed as like the right thing to do. But yeah, the fact that like Padme just like blew it off as like, oh, like everybody has bad feelings. Yeah, that was shit. That was a shitty take. And he even mentions that he killed like the women and children of the Tusken Raiders as well. And it's almost as if George Lucas wrote the script for, I think that was Attack of the Clones, and didn't realize that, hey, maybe this is bad writing. Maybe we shouldn't have him cross this threshold and then not have that be like a major plot point and just write it off because you need to go have another war scene before the end. Like maybe he shouldn't have gone that hard that fast. Maybe there was a better way to write that second act that didn't involve like genocide. Like there is a way that you could have it so that like Tusken Raiders killed his mother. Cool. Fine storytelling element, can be a real turning point in someone's like descent as a character on a what's called a tragedy arc, right? Cool. Awesome. And two, having this be a inflection point where he loses a major part of like the moral fiber that then puts him on the path to his descent into authoritarianism and all that kind of stuff. That cool. Love it. Sorry. Love that concept. Do you have him go straight to genocide? That's a bit tough. Do I have like a catch-all solution of what would have been better? No, but that definitely was like especially because he must have known that between the two movies he has to have like multiple years pass, right? So you can't have him go like down that dark path so early. But they could have had him do something that was like he was like the fact that like, even if he even had just not mentioned that there were women and children, if it was just like a regular group of like raiders who weren't like a tribal people, but just like a group of like guys, and him saying like, I killed all of them. Like all of them. That is like a little bit that you could have been like, oh shit. Like that's pretty extreme, bud. Or even like I would say that like one of the inflection points that showed his descent into the dark side that was better written than that was the one that he had at the beginning of Revenge of the Sith, where he catches Count Dooku and instead of taking him to justice, he fucking decapitates him. Like that's a better sign of something like that. Like maybe have like somebody kill Shmi Skywalker and then he goes and hunts this person down and the person is like, I surrender, take me to jail, that kind of thing. And like Anakin, like, supposed to be a Jedi would take him, but instead kills him. Like that's a better inflection point at that place than what he did. But do you think I'm right about the Tuskens being sort of Middle Eastern coded? Oh, fuck yes. Yeah, they've always been. They're sort of like because like all of Star Wars is based on like, is all like, what's his name? It's all George Lucas, his homage to like, classic movies, like his favorite, like adventure serials and stuff like that. And like, there was totally like a Lawrence of Arabia aspect to Tatooine and like the Tusken Raiders being like the like Bedouin raider type people that were in Lawrence of Arabia and stuff like that. But totally like killing somebody who killed his mother and like was brought down, and like, now you have to take me in, and say he chooses to kill him. Like that would have done what they needed to do in the story, but turn the temperature down enough that you could almost, like, the whole idea is that like you can see he's turning down a dark path, and because it's a prequel, you're supposed to know that he's turning down this dark path, and you can see like, oh, was this the first thing that led him to go down this path, and have it happen, but have it be not this like nonsensically like cartoonishly evil thing that he did, which then he has to go and be a protagonist again for another like movie and a half. So like, yeah. So, yeah. Oh, yeah, you didn't know that about Star Wars? Yeah, Star Wars, I remember, like, there's, like, a documentary from, like, the 90s about Star Wars where it showed that, like, almost all of Star Wars, I think I even tweeted about it recently, that almost all of Star Wars is based on, like, Ronin movies, Flash Gordon serials, like spaghetti westerns, and, like World War II dogfighting movies. And he just took all of that and put like a sort of sci-fi splattering on it. And Star Wars was sort of his homage to all of those different like high fun action dramas. And that's why like Star Wars is at its best when it like knows it's being silly and is just like a fast-paced, action-y, fun thing. Like that's why I think probably A New Hope is like the best Star Wars movie, because it knows what it's doing, right? It's fast. It keeps moving. You're always like there's always some cool scene going on, and it's just like adventure, and then like, big explosion. Like that's Star Wars. That's fun. That's fun shit. And then I always find that it's at its weakest when it starts taking itself way too seriously. Have I seen Evangelion? No, I haven't. However, do a video on the 1930s American Party, the Union Party, its main figures, William Lemke, Francis Townsend, Charles Coughlin, and Gerald Smith, who I guess you'd say was the Jimmy Dore of the Great Depression. I have wanted to do a Father Coughlin video to talk about Jimmy Dore. That has been on my radar for quite a while. I don't know why I never did it. Maybe because I don't think Jimmy Dore is super relevant anymore, but I might be wrong on that front because I don't really spend a lot of time on the internet. Andor is the exception. Yeah, I've watched an episode of Andor. It's on my short list of shows that I'm watching. The thing about Andor, and I don't know if I'm going to be right on this, but I suspect I'm going to be right on this, is that Andor is going to be a really good show in spite of it being Star Wars, and that the things that Andor is going to do well did not need the Star Wars setting in order to be good. Hot take, but I feel like I'm going to be justified in that. That like, it is a good story that just happens to be in the silly serial world designed for 10-year-olds to buy action figures. Like, I don't know if there's anything that's like central to what Star Wars is that Andor actually needs to work well, except for the fact that it's a prequel to Rogue One. But we'll see. I might be wrong on that. Maybe there is something that, like, specifically the Star Wars setting really adds to it, but it feels like it's really not trying to do, like, it's not like, Umu McBoo, the alien, and, like, the droids, and, like, I don't know. All right. Any memories of school computer labs or anyone trying to sneak in copies of Doom? Oh, yeah. We had a computer lab where I was in a class where we were all really ahead of the course material, and the teacher let us play Quake. This is how you know how old I am. We played Quake on the computer, on the computer lab computers. Or really early on, we played this game called Alien Adoption Agency, which was sort of like a really shitty proto version of Neopets where you adopted aliens. It was terrible. It was an absolutely terrible game. There's this other game, too, that I remember playing that I can't actually remember the name of it anymore, but it was a free online game that like you played with like it was like a sort of like top-down bullet hell game, but you were fighting against other people. Kind of gives me the same vibe as like the way people played Agar.io or whatever, which was like, I feel like was the like epitome of like the Zoomer middle school computer lab game. If anyone remembers Agar.io. Anyways. But yeah. And also the same teacher, Mr. Byzantine, I remember his name, used to at my school, the last day of school every year, we would have like a big sort of like fair, like the entire school would be converted into like a fair because no one would get any fucking work done on the last day of school. So we would like, have like all these like events and stuff like that. And one of the things they would do is they'd turn the computer lab into a Quake like LAN party. And we had a lot of fun with that. All right, next, thoughts on the Reddit strike. I mean, I don't know how well it's going to work. Reddit seems pretty content to just ignore it. In fact, one of the things that they're doing right now in response to the Reddit strike is they're just taking away moderators' powers, and they're going to have it so that like Reddit users can just vote away the powers of moderators. So, and it seems like really nothing's going to happen. But who knows? The enshittification of Reddit pushes on. All right, am I crazy? Does nobody remember Agar.io? It was definitely after my time. Like, it wasn't out when I was in high school, but I remember there being like high school kids were obsessed with that game for like a solid year. All right, let's see. Got one more question left. Is the polling claiming young people are getting more conservative bullshit? Because I hear this so much concerning the Tories, but I recall this being said before the 2018 and 2022 midterms about how Republicans were going to sweep the youth vote, and it did not come to pass. This sounds like media ghouls trying to manufacture consent. It definitely does, because in Canada, that's based on a poll that said the majority of people don't like Justin Trudeau, and then kind of doing the very CBC take of saying, well, if they don't like Trudeau, that means they must be supporting the Conservatives. But and also, there's a sort of this like liberal idea that if you don't support the liberals and the centrists, like what they're probably doing is like looking at the data and seeing that, oh, support for the Democratic Party is down. Well, that means they must be becoming conservatives. And it's like, no, like there's a lot of evidence that like the Republican Party does not have a future with young people at all. It's just that they also don't have the Democratic Party does not have like control over the support of young people. Okay. I've got some pressing deadlines coming up. I got to record something for another YouTuber this afternoon, and I have to go have lunch, which I think is here. So I got to go. It's 2:00. You guys have been great. Thank you for all of the entertaining times. I've been me. You've been you. Take care of yourselves and each other, and I will see you guys in 2 weeks.